Admiral Kex Nira stretched his forearms and yawned inside the command center of his flagship. The bridge was quiet, filled only with the soft humming of machines and the gentle breathing of his crew. 3 massive warships floated peacefully through the dark space of the Tau Ceti system, their silver hulls reflecting distant starlight like sleeping giants. "Another boring day in the middle of nowhere," muttered Lieutenant Zorketh, tapping his claws against his control panel. The young officer had been hoping for some action during this patrol, but space remained as empty as always. No pirates, no rebels, no threats of any kind. The Admiral nodded slowly, his large eyes scanning the tactical display. Green dots showed his 3 cruisers moving in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small planet, but out. Here in the empty void, they had nothing to shoot at except space rocks and cosmic dust. "Sir, you should see this," called Communications Officer Veltar from across the bridge. His voice carried a hint of amusement that made the other crew members look up from their stations. "We have a contact approaching from the outer system." Kex Nira's interest sparked slightly. "Pirates? Smugglers?" "No, sir, much better." Veltar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for alien laughter. "It's a human ship." The entire bridge fell silent for a moment, before erupting in quiet chuckles and amused chittering. Even the Admiral couldn't help but smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans were the newest species to stumble into galactic space, and their reputation preceded them like a bad joke. "Humans?" asked scanner operator Jixavol, her voice full of disbelief. "What are those primitives doing all the way out here?" The Admiral pulled up the species file on his personal screen. The data made for entertaining reading. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel a few decades ago using crude nuclear fusion drives. Their ships were boxy, ugly things made of basic metals and simple electronics. Most galactic civilizations had been building better spacecraft for thousands of years. "They probably got lost," suggested Veltar, causing another round of quiet laughter. "Their navigation systems are so primitive they use radio waves for communication." The contact grew larger on their screens, and soon they could make out the shape of the approaching vessel. It looked exactly like what they expected from human engineering, a long rectangular box with engines stuck on the back and sensor arrays poking out at odd angles. No elegant curves, no artistic design, just pure function over form. "Identification coming through now, sir," reported Veltar, reading from his screen. "Vessel designation UES Iron Phoenix, Captain Park Hyun commanding. They're requesting permission to pass through our territory on a diplomatic mission." Admiral Kex Nira leaned back in his command chair, amused by the situation. A single human ship, all alone in Vorthak space, politely asking for permission like a child asking to cross the street. Their intelligence reports suggested that humans were peaceful enough, though somewhat backward in their thinking. "Put them on screen," he ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing the interior of what looked like a cramped metal tube. A human male in a simple dark uniform stood at attention, his black hair neatly combed, and his expression respectfully serious. Behind him, other humans worked at primitive control panels covered in blinking lights and analog displays. "This is Captain Park Hyun of the Earth vessel Iron Phoenix," the human said in accented but clear galactic standard. "We request safe passage through your space to continue our diplomatic mission to the core worlds." The Admiral studied the human carefully. Park Hyun appeared young by galactic standards, probably no more than 40 standard years old. His ship's bridge looked like something from a museum, with actual physical switches and displays instead of the mental interfaces that civilized species used. "Captain Park," Kex Nira replied smoothly, "welcome to Vorthak space. Your request is granted, though I must ask, are you certain your vessel can make the journey? Our sensors indicate some rather basic propulsion systems." Even through the translation, the condescending tone was clear. Several bridge officers smirked openly, while others pretended to focus on their work to hide their amusement. Captain Park's expression remained professionally neutral. "We appreciate your concern, Admiral. The Iron Phoenix is quite capable for our needs." "I'm sure it is," Kex Nira replied, not bothering to hide his smile. "We'll assign an escort to ensure your safe passage. Wouldn't want you getting lost in..." our vast territory. The truth was, Vorthak space was well mapped and clearly marked. Any species capable of interstellar travel should have no trouble navigating it. But the idea of babysitting a primitive human ship through their domain amused the Admiral greatly. "That's very generous," Park replied politely. "We accept your kind offer." The communication ended, leaving the Vorthak bridge crew buzzing with quiet conversation and suppressed laughter. This was going to be the most entertaining patrol they'd had in months. Admiral Kexanira waved one of his 4 hands dismissively at his tactical officer. "Send the Razor's Edge to babysit our new friends. Captain Vixlek should enjoy the easy assignment." The sleek Vorthak corvette broke formation smoothly, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with soft blue light as it adjusted course toward the human vessel. The Razor's Edge was small compared to the massive cruisers, but it still outmassed the Iron Phoenix by nearly 3-to-1. Its crew of 30 considered this escort duty a joke assignment. "Iron Phoenix, this is Captain Vixlek of the Razor's Edge," came the transmission. The Vorthak officer's voice carried barely concealed laughter. "We'll be your guides through our territory. Try to keep up." Captain Park Hyun stood on his bridge, watching the alien warship approach on the main screen. The Vorthak vessel looked like a living creature, with its smooth curves and glowing patterns. It moved with a grace that made his own ship feel clumsy in comparison. "Acknowledged, Razor's Edge," Park replied calmly. "We appreciate the escort." Down in the Iron Phoenix's engineering section, Ko-Mina wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked on the fusion reactor's diagnostic panel. The engine room was hot, noisy, and cramped, nothing like the clean, quiet spaces she'd seen in videos of alien ships. Banks of monitors showed reactor temperature, plasma flow rates, and magnetic containment readings in glowing green numbers. "How are we looking, Mina?" asked her assistant technician Bae-hoon as he climbed down from an access ladder. "Everything's running perfectly," she replied, tapping a few keys to run another system check. "Fusion chambers are stable. Containment. Fields are holding steady. And we've got enough deuterium fuel for 6 months of travel." She paused her work as alien voices crackled over the ship's communication system. The Vorthak crew wasn't being very careful about keeping their channels private, and the Iron Phoenix's translation computers were picking up their casual conversation. "Look at that primitive reactor signature," laughed one alien voice. "They're actually using controlled fusion explosions for propulsion. How do they not blow themselves up?" "My grandfather's pleasure craft has better engines than that," added another voice. "I bet their top speed is barely 1/100th of light speed." Ko-Mina shook her head and returned to her diagnostics. Let them laugh. The Iron Phoenix's fusion drives might look simple, but they were reliable, efficient, and easy to repair with basic materials. Sometimes the best engineering was the kind that worked without fancy tricks. On the Razor's Edge bridge, Captain Vixlek was thoroughly enjoying himself. His crew had started a betting pool about how long the human ship would last before suffering a mechanical breakdown. The odds were running heavily in favor of less than 12 hours. "Their power output is pathetic," reported his engineer, studying the sensor readings. "We could outrun them while flying backwards." "And their hull construction," added the weapons officer with a snort. "Crude steel alloys with basic titanium reinforcement. One shot from our weakest plasma cannon would cut them in half." Vixlek nodded, watching the boxy human ship struggle to maintain formation. The Iron Phoenix was keeping pace, but just barely. Its engines glowed with the orange fire of chemical rockets instead of the clean blue-white of proper antimatter drives. "Bridge to all stations," came Captain Park's voice over the Iron Phoenix's internal comm. "We're maintaining course and speed. All departments report status." "Engineering is green across the board," Ko-Mina replied promptly. "Fusion reactors are running at optimal efficiency. Navigation confirms our heading," added Lieutenant Nam Soo-jin from the helm. "We're following the prescribed route through Vorthak space. Weapons systems are secured," reported Weapons Officer Lee Jun after a slight pause. His station looked almost empty compared to the other bridge positions, with only a few basic control panels and targeting displays. The alien chatter continued over the open channels, growing more mocking as the hours passed. The Vorthak crew seemed to think the humans couldn't understand their language, not realizing that Earth's translation technology was more advanced than they assumed. "I give them another 6 hours before something breaks," bet one voice. 4 hours, countered another. "Those fusion reactors are running too hot. They'll have a containment failure soon." "You're both too generous," laughed a third. 2 hours maximum. Humans can't even build proper environmental systems. They're probably suffocating in there." Captain Park listened to the alien commentary with patience that impressed his crew. His expression never changed from its professional calm, even when the mocking became particularly cruel. Years of diplomatic training had taught him to ignore insults and focus on the mission. "Captain," asked Communications Officer Yu Jae-won, quietly, "should we tell them we can hear everything they're saying?" Park considered this for a moment, then shook his head. "Let them talk. Sometimes it's better to let people reveal their true nature." The escort continued through the dark void of space, the graceful alien corvette shadowing the crude human vessel. To outside observers, it looked like a sophisticated predator lazily following clumsy prey. But appearances, as the galaxy would soon learn, could be very deceiving. Admiral Kexanira stared at the tactical display showing a small, lifeless moon, orbiting the system's 4th planet. The rocky sphere was about half the size of Earth's moon, covered in craters and completely worthless, except for the demonstration he had in mind. His bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, unaware of what their commander was planning. "Attention, all ships," the Admiral announced over the fleet communication channel. "We're going to show our human guests the true power of Vorthak military technology. Consider this a friendly educational experience." On the Iron Phoenix, Captain Park Hyun frowned as he listened to the transmission. Something in the alien commander's tone suggested this wouldn't be entirely friendly. His crew exchanged worried glances across the cramped bridge. "All vessels assume firing formation," continued Kexanira's voice. "Target the 4th planet's inner moon. Prepare plasma cannon arrays for synchronized bombardment." The 3 massive Vorthak cruisers moved into position with fluid grace, their hulls beginning to glow with building energy. Weapon ports opened along their sides like flowering petals of death, revealing the crystalline focusing chambers of their plasma cannons. The air around the alien ships shimmered with heat distortion as massive amounts of power flowed into their weapon systems. "This should be quite a show," Captain Vixlek commented from the Razor's Edge. "The humans are about to learn why the Vorthak Empire controls this entire sector." Captain Park watched the alien formation with growing unease. The demonstration was clearly meant to intimidate, to show humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. He'd seen similar displays before during his diplomatic career. Powerful species flexing their military strength to keep weaker ones in line. "Sir," whispered Communications Officer Yu Jae-won, "should we move to a safer distance?" "No," Park replied calmly. "We'll observe from here. They want us to see this." The Vorthak plasma cannons reached full charge with a low, thrumming sound that seemed to make space itself vibrate. Each weapon contained enough concentrated energy to level a major city, and all 3 ships carried dozens of such cannons. The combined firepower aimed at the small moon was absolutely devastating. Admiral Kexanira smiled, showing his rows of sharp teeth. Fire! The plasma barrage lit up the darkness like an artificial star. Streams of superheated matter lanced through space at near light speed, crossing the distance to the moon in seconds. When they struck, the results were spectacular beyond imagination. The moon's surface exploded in brilliant flashes of vaporized rock and metal. Massive chunks of debris flew outward in all directions as the plasma beams carved deep canyons through the satellite's crust. Within minutes, the entire moon was glowing white-hot, its structure compromised by the incredible energy being poured into it. The bombardment continued for nearly 10 minutes. When it finally ended, nothing remained of the moon except a slowly expanding cloud of superheated gas and molten rock fragments. The Vorthak had completely destroyed a celestial body just to make a point. "Impressive," Admiral Kexanira said with satisfaction. "I trust our human friends found that educational." The alien crew cheered and congratulated each other on the successful demonstration. They fully expected the humans to be terrified, perhaps even begging for mercy after witnessing such devastating firepower. Some crew members were already taking bets on whether the Iron Phoenix would surrender immediately or try to flee. Captain Park studied the debris field where the moon had been, his expression thoughtful rather than frightened. After a long moment, he activated his communication system. "Admiral Kexanira, this is Captain Park," he said formally. "That was truly a remarkable display of your people's capabilities. With your permission, I would like to express our gratitude through a small, cultural demonstration of our own." The request caught the Vorthak completely off guard. They had expected fear, submission, or desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, the human captain was asking to put on some kind of show. Kexnira's mandibles clicked together in amusement. "A cultural demonstration? How quaint. By all means, Captain, please proceed. We're always interested in learning about primitive customs." The alien crews prepared themselves for what they assumed would be crude fireworks or perhaps some kind of primitive light display. Humans were known for their simple entertainments, and this would probably be quite amusing to watch. On the Iron Phoenix Bridge, Captain Park turned to his weapons officer. "Lee Jun, you have permission to begin the demonstration. Weapons officer." Lee Jun had been waiting patiently for this moment throughout the entire escort mission. His fingers moved across control panels that most of the alien observers had dismissed as primitive junk. Hidden systems began powering up throughout the Iron Phoenix, drawing energy from the ship's fusion reactors at levels that would have alarmed any competent engineer. "Weapons systems initializing," Lee Jun reported quietly. "All primary arrays coming online." The Iron Phoenix's hull began to change. What had appeared to be simple metal plating started retracting, revealing hidden compartments that had been invisible to the Vorthak sensors. Weapon ports emerged from concealment like the eyes of a predator opening in the dark. "Power levels are climbing steadily," reported Komina from engineering. "All reactors are operating within acceptable parameters." The aliens watched with growing confusion as the primitive human ship underwent its transformation. Energy readings that their sensors had dismissed as background noise suddenly spiked to levels that made their instruments scream warnings. Something was very, very wrong with their assumptions about human technology. The transformation of the Iron Phoenix was like watching a mechanical flower bloom in the darkness of space. What had appeared to be crude metal plating across the ship's hull began sliding away with perfect precision, revealing hidden compartments that had been invisible moments before. The boxy, primitive vessel suddenly looked like something entirely different. "What in the seven hells?" muttered Captain Vixlek aboard the Razor's Edge, his four eyes widening as he watched the human ship change before his senses. Weapon ports emerged from concealment along the Iron Phoenix's sides, top and bottom. Sleek railgun barrels extended like the spines of some ancient sea creature, while missile tubes opened in perfectly geometric patterns. Energy conduits that had been hidden beneath false hull plating now glowed with barely contained power. On the Vorthak flagship, scanner operator Jixvol stared at her instruments in confusion. "Admiral, I'm getting impossible readings from the human vessel. Their power output just increased by a factor of 50. Admiral Kexnira leaned forward in his command chair, his amusement rapidly turning to concern. "That can't be right. Check your equipment." "I've run diagnostics 3 times. Sir, the readings are accurate. That ship is generating more energy than our main battle cruiser." Weapons Officer Lee Jun worked calmly at his station aboard the Iron Phoenix, his fingers dancing across control panels that now revealed their true complexity. What had looked like simple switches and basic displays moments before were actually sophisticated targeting systems and fire control computers. "Primary railgun batteries are charged and ready," he reported to Captain Park. "Missile systems are online. Directed energy weapons are standing by." "Target selection?" asked Park, his voice steady and professional. 3 asteroids in the nearby belt, sir. Different sizes, different compositions. Should provide a good demonstration of our capabilities." Captain Park nodded. "You may proceed when ready." The first shot came without warning. A railgun mounted on the Iron Phoenix's starboard side fired with a flash of electromagnetic energy that lit up the surrounding space. The tungsten projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance to the largest asteroid in less than 2 seconds. The impact was devastating beyond anything the Vorthak had ever witnessed. The asteroid, roughly the size of a city block back on Earth, simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy of the projectile converted both the tungsten slug and the space rock into a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated plasma that glowed like a newborn star. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Kexanira, watching the display in stunned silence. The second demonstration came immediately after. A directed energy weapon on the Iron Phoenix's ventral hull fired a focused beam of coherent particles at a medium-sized asteroid. The alien crews watched in horrified fascination as the space rock was sliced cleanly in half, then quarters, then eighths. The cuts so precise they looked like they'd been made with a surgeon's scalpel. But it was the third demonstration that truly shattered the Vorthak understanding of human capabilities. Li Jun selected a cluster of smaller asteroids and fired a spread of missiles from the ship's hidden launch tubes. The projectiles moved with impossible speed and accuracy, each one equipped with miniaturized fusion warheads. The detonations that followed turned night into day. Nuclear fire bloomed in the asteroid field like deadly flowers, each explosion perfectly timed and positioned for maximum effect. When the light finally faded, nothing remained of the asteroid cluster except glowing atoms scattered across thousands of cubic kilometers of space. The entire demonstration had lasted exactly 12 seconds. Aboard the Vorthak ships, crews sat in shocked silence. Instrument panels that had been confidently reading primitive fusion drive and basic metal construction now screamed warnings about energy signatures that broke their understanding of physics. Their most advanced sensors couldn't even properly classify the weapons they'd just witnessed. "Sir," reported the Razor's Edge tactical officer, his voice shaking, "our computers estimate that the human vessel carries enough firepower to sterilize our homeworld." Captain Vixlek's mandibles clicked nervously. "That's impossible. They're primitives. The intelligence report said they barely achieved faster-than-light travel." "The intelligence reports were wrong," Admiral Kexnira said quietly, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. "Very, very wrong." On the Iron Phoenix bridge, Captain Park watched the alien fleet's formation begin to scatter as panic set in among their crews. Several ships were already powering up their engines, preparing to flee. Others had activated emergency shields and were frantically scanning for additional human vessels. "Demonstration complete, sir," reported Li Jun as the weapon systems powered down and the hidden ports began closing. All systems returning to standby mode. "Thank you, Mr. Li. That was very professionally done." Park activated his communication system. "Admiral Kexnira, I hope you found our cultural demonstration informative. Human military traditions emphasize precision and efficiency over showmanship." The communication channel remained silent for nearly a full minute before the Vorthak commander finally responded. When he did, his voice had lost all traces of condescension and amusement. "Captain Park," Kexnira said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss diplomatic protocols more thoroughly." "I would be happy to do so," Park replied politely. "Though I should mention that the Iron Phoenix is primarily a diplomatic vessel. Our actual military ships are somewhat more heavily armed." The lie was delivered so smoothly that even Park's own crew almost believed it. In the stunned silence that followed, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. Captain Park Hyun stood on his bridge, watching the Vorthak fleet maintain their careful distance. The alien ships had backed away to what they probably considered a safe range, though Park knew that distance meant very little when dealing with relativistic weapons. Their formation had completely broken apart, with some vessels pointing their engines toward deep space in case they needed to run. "Admiral Kexnira," Park said over the open communication channel, his voice carrying the same polite tone he'd maintained throughout their encounter. "I want to thank you and your crews for the warm hospitality you've shown us during our passage through your territory. It's been truly educational." The irony wasn't lost on anyone listening. The Vorthak had intended to intimidate and humiliate the humans, only to discover they were completely outclassed by what they'd assumed was a primitive vessel. "The pleasure was ours," replied Admiral Kexnira, though his voice sounded anything but pleased. "Your demonstration was most enlightening, Captain Park." "I'm glad you found it interesting," Park continued conversationally. "Though I should clarify something that might have caused confusion. The Iron Phoenix isn't actually a military vessel. We're classified as a diplomatic courier ship, designed for peaceful missions like this one. The silence that followed this statement was deafening. On the Vorthak flagship, crew members exchanged horrified glances. If this was what humans considered a peaceful diplomatic ship, what did their actual warships look like? A diplomatic vessel? Admiral Kexnira asked weakly. That's correct. Our mission is to establish peaceful relations with various galactic civilizations. The Iron Phoenix is equipped with basic defensive systems, of course, but nothing compared to our dedicated military vessels. Park paused, as if considering his words carefully. I hope that puts your minds at ease about human intentions. We truly do come in peace. Down in the Iron Phoenix's engineering section, Komina smiled as she listened to the captain's words. The basic defensive systems he mentioned were actually some of the most advanced weapons technology humanity had ever developed, but the aliens didn't need to know that. Navigation, prepare for hyperspace jump, Park announced to his crew. Set course for the core worlds. We have a diplomatic mission to complete. Aye, sir, replied Lieutenant Nam Su-jin from the helm. Hyperspace generators are spinning up. We'll be ready to jump in 30 seconds. The Iron Phoenix's hull began to shimmer with the distinctive energy field that preceded a faster-than-light transition. Unlike the elegant flowing departure of most alien vessels, the human ship's hyperspace entry looked almost violent, a sudden tear in reality that the vessel disappeared through like it was being swallowed by the void. One moment the Iron Phoenix was there, and the next it was gone, leaving only empty space and the lingering memory of weapons that shouldn't have existed. Admiral Kexnira sat in stunned silence for several minutes after the human ship vanished. His bridge crew waited nervously for orders, unsure of what to do next. Finally, the Admiral activated his priority communications system. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Kexnira aboard the Sovereign Might. I need an immediate secure channel to High Command. Priority Alpha Emergency. The response came back within seconds. Admiral, you're connected to High Command. This is Fleet Admiral Toxavar. What's your situation? Sir, we've just encountered a human vessel in the Tau Ceti system. Our previous intelligence assessments about human capabilities were completely wrong. Catastrophically wrong. Explain. Kexnira took a deep breath before continuing. The human ship displayed weapons technology that surpasses anything in our arsenal. They destroyed multiple asteroids in seconds using what appeared to be relativistic, kinetic weapons and directed energy systems beyond our understanding. Answer. They claimed this was just a diplomatic courier vessel. The communication channel remained silent for a long moment. When Fleet Admiral Toxvar finally responded, his voice was deadly serious. Admiral, I want you to compile a complete report on everything you witnessed. Every sensor reading, every energy signature, every detail. And I want it transmitted to High Command immediately. Yes, sir. But there's something else. The human captain mentioned that other human ships are operating throughout the galaxy. Sir, I don't think humanity is the primitive species we believed them to be. While the Vorthak leadership struggled to process this new reality, Captain Park's words were proving prophetic. Across the galaxy, other human vessels were indeed revealing themselves to various alien civilizations. Ships that had been dismissed as crude explorers or primitive traders were suddenly displaying capabilities that defied explanation. In the Andorian sector, the human freighter Steady Progress had just outmaneuvered 3 pirate vessels using propulsion systems that seemed to bend the laws of physics. The cargo ship had then disabled all 3 attackers with weapons that fired bursts of exotic matter. Near the galactic core, the human research vessel Curious Mind had politely declined an alien empire's demand for technological samples by demonstrating that their primitive sensors could detect and track every vessel in a 50 light-year radius simultaneously. And in the Outer Rim territories, the human colony ship New Horizon had established a settlement on a world that 3 different alien species had claimed was uninhabitable, using terraforming technology that worked faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Species that had ruled for millennia suddenly found themselves wondering if they were still at the top of the food chain. The balance of power was shifting, and at The center of it all were the humans, the species everyone had underestimated until it was far too late.